me. First of all, for our listeners, viewers, whoever's, tuned into this, the two guys who are sober are the two of us.
Or us.
You mentioned that. Yeah. We're the
welcome
two
to
that
welcome
have.
to the Buzzkill party right here.
Welcome to Guys Fishing Weekly. We don't just fish, we hug.
Yeah.
La, la, la.
Where's our jingle, dude?
We don't have a jingle yet.
We don't have our jingle yet. We need the
No,
GFW jingle.
We're gonna work on that this week. This is the week we get the jingle.
Sweet. We hammer down the jingle.
But here we are. Week
Right
2.
on, man. Good to see you, dude. Good to see you. How are you?
I've been all right. I bought a mountain bike this weekend, which I know is not something that is probably looking forward to be talked about on a guys fishing podcast, but
Sense of adventure, man. Sense of adventure.
I did acquire one to go on bigger adventures, deeper into the fishing jungle. So
nice.
That should be awesome.
That's exciting. Yeah, we just a slugging through weekend. Went fishing last Thursday with your old man.
Yeah.
And it was great. We had a great day until they started releasing water and it got all murked up. But we got a few hours on the river and got into some pretty rainbows. And yeah, so I got a little February 1st fishing, which was fantastic.
It was good to get the little warm spell.
Yeah, it was like 60 degrees. It was just a beautiful day, sunshine. Yeah, it was fantastic. Still some snow and ice on the ground and ice edges, but it was awesome. Fantastic day. Even for a little bit. So always a good week when I can get a day of fishing in. Because you know what they say, Ed.
What do they say?
You know what they say. A bad day of fishing is better than a good day at work. Mm-hmm.
They do say that.
Yes, indeed.
They do say that.
Yes.
It's better when you ditch and your boss doesn't know, though.
I think my bosses know. I'm 4 months away from retirement, dude. So, yeah, they all know. Every day off I'm taking is usually I'm fishing. So, I got them. Might as well use them.
Got to use them.
That's right.
All right. So, I guess, we've been talking about what we're going to do on this podcast. I think we've spent a lot of time writing. We like to write. We like to think through words. And I think reading one of our writing pieces would be a great way to start, and then talking about what we're thinking with that. Chop it up around how it pertains to fishing and friendship and all of that. So I think that's how we should proceed here.
Great. Yeah. I think that's a good idea.
We got 2 choices, and we don't know which one to choose. One written by Reed, The Benefits of Being Vulnerable, and one written by Ed, N.A. Beers on Sobriety. So we're going to flip a coin. Head Reed, tails Ed, and
okay.
Well, actually, head Ed would have been better, but that's fine. Head for Reed.
Whatever.
Tails for
our literary skills are
tails.
Tails.
Tails Ed.
Tails
right?
Ed.
Yeah.
Right on.
Backwards. We did it backwards. All right.
That's good.
It's good. Keep us on our toes. All right. Little story time with the Guys Fishing Weekend boys. Here we go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here we go. I'm sitting here at a bar in Chicago. My flight abruptly canceled due to rain. Don't get me started. And so I'm stranded for the night. Graciously, my company foot the bill for the hotel, and I'm grabbing some dinner before calling it a night. I gave up drinking roughly 8 years, 7 months, and 7 days ago. I say roughly because we always know. Back to that in a second. But ever since then, I have been a non-alcoholic beer connoisseur. Frankly, when I first got sober, they all sucked. Borderline undrinkable. But in the last 5 years, brewers have really turned up their games. There are some great flavors out there. But still, restaurants haven't done a great job of carrying them. Consider this my loud lobbying into the void to pick up some of the more unique NA beers. Luckily, where I am tonight has Heineken Zero. Not my favorite, but pretty tasty, and it will more than suffice. So I grabbed 2. We have 2 sober guys on our guys fishing weekend. When I first started going on these, there was one, and he became one of my mentors in this new world of sobriety. I am more grateful than ever that he will ever know for that relationship. But when I first started coming, it took a little extra effort to make sure the sober guy had a drink. I didn't get it at the time. Fast forward 5 or 6 years, and now I'm in the same boat. Being someone who hasn't had soda in years already, this left me with the choices of water and tea to drink. Not really a great way to blend in during poker night. When I first got sober, one of my many exercises I went through, and the one that still brings me the most awareness of my new state, was what is my sober drink? Alcohol is ingrained in our U.S. society. It is what props up most of our social events and pretty much all cooler sales. Every barbecue has the adult cooler and the kid cooler, a 2 cooler per capita minimum. As a 35-year-old guy, being the one who hangs out near the kid cooler is frowned upon, and while that may be a joke, it is always a stark reminder of being sober when your drink choices chill next to the Capri Suns. In your non-social career life, you are expected to grow your career at networking events and holiday parties. Here, alcohol is what most turn into their safety blanket. As a young guy trying to break into an industry, when you enter a networking event, you immediately scan the horizon for a familiar face or make a beeline for that bar. But when you arrive at the bar, many narratives are added to the already unnerving feeling of isolation in a room of unknown people. Maybe others have this mental block too, but for me, it was quite a story I crafted. I can't quit because if I won't be able to have that gin and tonic at a networking event, I'll look so weird with just water. If I get cranberry juice, I'm sure I will get some weird looks. How will I ever answer, what are you drinking? Come on, kid, call your shot. Don't mess this one up. And so for these occasions, I settled on soda water with lime costume. Maybe some would call it a disguise. It took time to accept and love this new identity, but to this day, I still reflect on how that guy felt when he first started, alone for no other reason than his own mental models. These conversations continue in your head during every social encounter, including guys fishing weekend with another sober guy who has already taken you under his wing. I debated how I would look to guys I love and know love me back. I pondered for hours if I could blend into the truest of my buddies. Pretty sad looking back at it. But your best buddies, the one who you know you can keep after getting sober, spoiler, most you can't, help you blend in without a hitch. They buy you your NA beer comfort blanket. They protect you from the ribbings from the guy who just doesn't quite get why you aren't you anymore. Basically, they show you they care by not caring. Safe communities are the most important part of sobriety. AA and other help groups provide this for millions of people. Frankly, those who either A, don't find one of these groups, or B, don't leave their current geography for other pastures, probably don't succeed in their pledge. I luckily was able to do both, with my GFW group being one of my safe communities. They greeted me with open arms. So as I sit here in this bar with my last of my NA beer and the second on the way, I think about who I'm grateful for helping me on this journey. The ones who silently stand by me when I'm not sure others would. I'm forever indebted. And for all those who are reading this who struggle with sobriety or just got started or who are going on year 40, know you always have a community here at GFW. You aren't alone. Cheers. All right. One reading in the books.
Nice, dude. Yeah, good. Reading out loud.
Reading out loud.
I'm probably a lot more. Yeah, it's kind of it. People who don't do it, probably are like, "Wow, that's weird." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do it all the time to my students in class, so I'm like fully like I read out loud sometimes to myself.
So you should have read
books.
it.
I'll read passages. Yeah, I wondered about that. I wondered if like I read your piece or you read mine out loud, what that would be like. Maybe we'll have to try that
You've
down
got
the
a better
road.
voice.
Yeah, it's the teacher voice, dude. You
It's a
know,
teacher
I do
voice.
that. I've literally read the book The Outsiders to my classes probably over 100 times. It's crazy. So, no, great piece. I think you get into a couple of really interesting things that stood out to me. First of all, for our listeners, viewers, whoever's tuned into this, the two guys who are sober are the two of us.
Or us.
You mentioned that. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're the
welcome
two
to
that
welcome to the
have.
buzzkill party right here.
Yeah. See, I disagree. I don't think that's it. But there's a lot of people who do view it that way, right?
Yeah.
If you're not part of the drinking community. And I did. When I got sober 30 some years ago, and you talk a little bit about that in the piece where there's, some people, look at you like you're not you anymore. Right. And that was one of the things that stood out to me in your piece was, what was that idea and that you do lose some people who you used to be friends with and you quit drinking and they, for whatever reason don't understand or whatever. And you drift apart and you don't, you know what I mean? Whether they can't accept that fact or whatever. I know for me, there was a couple of guys that I drank and I drank hard with. And it was easy to know when I quit drinking that they wouldn't be able to handle that because I think they weren't ready to give up the heavy drinking they were doing. Do you know what I mean? Like
Right.
they just couldn't come to grips with that, or they were too afraid to look at themselves in that way or whatever. And I'm not saying that they had drinking problems the way I did. But I know a couple of guys that I partied hard with, I never hung out with again after I got sober. And I think that's just part of the, deal.
I definitely think when you got sober compared to when I got sober, I think the stigma's definitely changed a little bit. But I do say to myself, I don't think I could have ever gotten sober if I had never moved out of Colorado. I think there is something, and that's why I say about like changing the geography of it all.
Mm-hmm.
It's for me, it was the crucial point. It was not something that I needed in the new place. Like it was I had the ability to shed an identity and not be sort of looked upon differently because no one knew me any other way theoretically. So,
right.
I think that was one of the huge things for me. And some might say I wasn't a terrible drinker, and I would probably disagree after looking back on it all. But you still get that feeling of, you're not you anymore. Even though it's been, over 9 years now for me. So.
Yeah, let me ask you this, Ed, because when you wrote that was one of the things that I looked at, and what do you think? What's the difference between the you now versus the you then? Because you wrote that line in your piece. Some guys look at you and you're not you anymore.
Yeah.
So talk about that. Like, what's some of the differences between you now and you then?
I don't, I guess the punchline is that I don't think I am different. I think it's a personal mask or personal crutch that you have to kind of like hold on to be. It's an identity or a costume that you put on. I guess is the best way I can describe it. I don't think I'm really truly different. I think there's been a lot of positivity that's come out of it for me, healthier, sharper ability to do things, better or more regularly. You're not waking up with that grogginess. You're not feeling guilty the next day or, things like that. But I don't think I'm necessarily different. But I could be wrong. I don't know. I think it's more of a personal vision of yourself, just a completely different identity that you have to come to grips with.
Mhm.
rather than
Yeah, I think
what other people say.
right. And it's true. I think what you said about, when I got sober 30 years ago, um, there was, you know, if you got sober, you definitely, you were looked at as like you had a problem. And I definitely had a problem. Like I was, you know what I mean? And I think that there's for sure it's a personal thing because even, the person who kind of helped drive me into understanding, my drinking, um, her path was very different than my path. And my brother in his recovery, his path has been very different from my path. And so when you talk about that idea of it being a personal thing, it is very much, right? Our paths are different. I don't think there is, AA works for some people. AA doesn't work for some people. It doesn't mean that they're doing sobriety wrong. And I think that, I'm probably an example of that. I went through rehab and it's funny because I changed geography to go through rehab. I didn't do it, where I lived. I went to a new place to do that. But, um, I didn't follow the path of, AA meetings every day and da da da. And I think that my sobriety's been just as valuable and as important. And, I've worked the steps of AA and done that stuff. But, there's also some different twists that I put into my own recovery in that personal sense, um, that I think is part of the journey because I don't think you can fit everybody into, it's like the square peg in the round hole or round peg in the square hole, whatever.
Yeah,
But yeah, you know what I'm saying? So,
right,
so that's an interesting thing because there was definitely for me different use. I hid behind it for everything and I avoided all emotional stuff. I avoided, anything traumatic or any problems or issues. I just wanted to have fun. And so my
right,
alcohol was the way that I did that, um, to avoid all responsibility, and so I look at the me now and I'm like, I wouldn't be able to have I wouldn't be able to be a father or, a husband. And, those kinds of things that never happen if I was still drinking. I firmly
right.
believe that I wouldn't be able to be a teacher for 25 years if I was still drinking. God, if there's ever a profession that would drive you to drinking, it's definitely teaching. But
You would
it's
have been a
amazing
better
I've
teacher if
survived
you were a
that
drinker.
long. Probably, right? Yeah. Um, so it's interesting because I think that there's probably you might look at it and go, oh, I'm still the same me. I just don't drink. But I bet you there's probably some stuff that's deeper than that that you've
I,
discovered.
I would agree. I mean, I think, yeah, I think there's I was a very functional drinker. I
Hmm.
I would think most people in our culture would probably say I didn't have a problem at all when they watched me with the way I was drinking. Um, I think when the my relationship was one reason that pushed me over the edge, and my other reasoning being that I just didn't like myself when I was drinking, or mainly really after I was done drinking. I just did not like the guilt that came along with it. And that, even if I
Hmm.
didn't do anything
Hmm.
wrong, I just had this like
Yeah.
innate sense of like guilt. I could have, I
Right.
mean,
Hmm.
drinking by yourself is usually frowned upon in some ways too. But like, even when I drank by myself, the next day I'd be
Hmm.
like guilty about it. And I just got kind of
Hmm.
tired of that feeling. And, I it has completely changed and made my life better. Um,
Hmm.
but I don't know if me as like I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. I don't know if me as like the image of I have of myself or is really that different from it. I think it's all the ancillary benefits and stuff that have come along it for me at least. Um,
Right. Right. Right.
so
Yeah, that's cool. And also, I mean, like when I when I quit drinking, I was in the restaurant business. I wasn't in corporate America. When you quit drinking, that was like a real thing for you as someone who's trying to, right, inwardly be better, right, to rid yourself of those guilty feelings.
Right.
Just of like you just didn't feel good about yourself when you drank, right? And it, people looking on were to be like, Ed, he doesn't have a drinking problem, right? He's not falling down puking on himself,
Right.
which is probably real different from what they would have said about me. But yeah, but you were in like a big corporate job, and like you talked about that idea of like the social aspect of that, which is huge, right? I mean, networking events and socializing and going out to lunch, taking a client out golfing, whatever it is, right? That social drinking aspect of it is such an important thing for like your business and your work career.
Right.
That had to have been, right? That had to have been tough. Was there like a moment when, like you kind of talked about that story you're telling people, I can't go, right? But you had to have had a moment where there was like, okay, yeah, I'm just going to drink the soda water and lime. Like
Yeah,
that's tough. Like, what was that like?
I think it still comes up. I think in some ways, when you're going to like middle of the day networking events or, happy hours are a little bit harder, but there are other people who aren't drinking as well. It's not like working in a bar. Again, I don't think I could.
Right.
I don't think I could have quit drinking when I worked in a bar. I just don't think it would have.
A lot of people didn't think I could either. It's a miracle.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But I do think like it is such a comfort blanket. It's such a what you do to get into the room if you don't know somebody. Even at a barbecue where you know people, like the cooler is almost one of the first thing that you make a beeline for. So there is this comfort blanket aspect to it, and I've quickly realized that I had to figure out how to combat that question of, hey, so what are you drinking? Let me grab it for you, and not saying like, oh, I'm just drinking water. And that might even sound perfectly reasonable to somebody. But a lot of the battle is between your own two ears of like, the people are going to think I'm weird if I say water. And so you do have to, for me, it was a lot of battling about those insecurities of being weird or not like everybody else to get past.
Yeah, yes, that's definitely a process. I don't, for me, it's been 30 years, whatever. It's easier for a guy who's in his mid 50s to be like, oh yeah, I don't drink. And people respect that seemingly more now that I'm like the older guy. Do you know what I mean? Like people don't even people that I just meet, if I'm meeting friends of Karen's or something like that, and it's like, I'm meeting them for the first time. And I don't drink. Just give me a water, whatever. It seems like it's more socially acceptable, right?
Right.
Somebody 35 though in a career, like, wow, you don't drink. And I remember that. I remember going through that as when we would go, to golf tournaments. Jägermeister's putting we got to go, right? You know what I mean? They're sponsoring this hole. We're in this restaurant foursome at this golf tournament, supporting other restaurants and stuff. And I'm like the one guy that shows up to the Jaeger hole and doesn't, I'm not doing shots. I'm standing on the tee box while everybody's with the Jaeger girls getting pictures taken. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, I'm the one sober dude and everybody's cross-eyed. It was, that was a process I felt like that outside. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they're all flirting with the girls. I'm standing on the tee box ready to tee off. Like I remember that feeling of feeling like, yeah, I'm like the one dude here who's not, partaking.
Do you think that
tough.
other people were actually thinking that about you, or do you think that was more of a internal conversation that you were making up?
It was probably more the latter. it was probably my own stuff and insecurities of this new, identity that I'm getting used to, or is a part of my identity anyway, right? I
Right.
mean, it's not my whole identity. I mean, my values and what I believe in and what I wanted for my own life, that didn't change. Those were still, still the same. But when I quit drinking, all of those emotions and feelings and things that I had been avoiding with drinking were like right in your face, so it was probably more of my insecurities because I'm feeling
Right.
insecure for the first time, right, in this scenario, because usually I was one of the guys who was, happily drinking and doing shots and doing all that stuff. And I didn't feel insecure. So
Yeah.
yeah, you take that safety blanket away, imagine what Linus would feel like if you took his blanket away. He'd be
Right.
he'd be in a fetal position in the corner crying, right?
Right.
Um, so yeah, I think that stuff's, that's the good and the bad of it, right? I mean, and that's the hard thing is that, I remember when I was learning to live life sober, you are learning about new ways to deal with the stuff that comes up in your life, emotionally and everything else and every other scenario that comes up. And you have to learn how to do it without medicating it, right?
Right.
And so that process takes a while. But yeah, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at times.
Yeah.
And I wasn't in, and like I say, I was in the restaurant business doing it, and it was such a big part. But I had such a great support group around me in the restaurant business. People at AA, when I went to AA meetings, then they were, "You'll never make it. You won't last. Here's my number when you relapse." And I'm like, "You don't know me." That's why I got a little turned off by it, because of that. I had a great support group and friends that, I was living with who were still drinking, and they didn't put booze in the house. They got rid of it for me. You know what I mean? Like it was
Right.
really cool. So I had some great support around me that really helped me through those times. But yeah, it was definitely probably more of my stuff, my insecurities of feeling that way, that outwardly people were probably like, "Oh, I admire that guy."
Right.
you know, Not the drunk slob that's drooling all over me. But, so
No, I think the people that you surround yourself with after you make that choice are so crucial. And like I said, I don't think I could have done it had I not been in a different geography. Um,
mhm.
I think
Yeah,
I think there I think when you there's so much about like I have a vision of you, Reed, as this forever because I've created and cemented this image of you, and it's that way or the highway. You're in this box in my head, and it really takes a mature person to be able to switch that. I mean, it's hard for even just you to look differently in your parents' eyes, or you to look differently at your kids when they become something different that you don't have them pegged at. And so, but if you're able to present yourself the first time as like, yeah, I don't drink, or this is just the way it is for me. I always found that was a lot easier for somebody to just get quickly to grips and find allies, than trying to convince old connections of things being still cool this way. Um, so
yeah,
I always think that the people that you're able to surround yourself with, if you can just make those allies, it just makes it so much easier.
for sure. Um, one of the other things you talked about was you mentioned the negative conversations, or that voice in your head, the conversations you have. I always picture the uh, the scene in Animal House with the little angel on one
Yeah,
shoulder and the
right.
devil on the other, speaking in Lawrence's ears. Um, and how you overcome those things, right? How do you get over the negative conversations? Um, that you have when you're going through something like that. Was there anything for you? You mentioned like your relationship was like a major driving factor
Yeah, I
for
mean,
you to
so
change your drinking habits.
I think a couple of things. One, I had tried, and I guess I was successful quitting drinking one time towards the end of
Mm-hmm.
college. Um, and so I'd kind of had experience with quitting at one point in time, but it didn't really hold. I wouldn't say I theoretically relapsed, but I didn't. It wasn't like I slipped into this unplanned. There was always kind of an intention that I was going to sort of go back and try and drink in a normal way again, in air quotes as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I always felt better when I hadn't been drinking, and then there was the extra pressure of, relationship, like, the guilt around that, you can't keep doing this. I just don't like you and you're this way type of thing. Um, and so there was a bit of that, and my relationship became one of my biggest rocks in the whole situation. So, and that part's good. I think when it comes to like devil or angel on both shoulders, I think, like I wrote in the in the piece of this, just being this conversation that you have with yourself, like, come on, everybody's looking at you, you better call your shot. Like, if you don't say something now, you say water, everybody's gonna laugh at you. Like, there's this almost self-conscious, just, spiraling of that, and that still creeps up now and then. I have my go-to like islands of safety that I can hop to, that I know, like, I can always say this and no one's going to have any way to like rebut that or push anything on me. Like, and it has become a lot more acceptable in society now. I think, there's so many drinks now that are like non-alcoholic drinks that like people are putting in cooler, in the kiddie cooler. And so it's so much easier to find, non-alcoholic things. People are accepting of it. And I think, yeah, early in my sobriety, I was going to try and start like a non-alcoholic company, because I was always just frustrated. I didn't want to drink soda because it's bad for you. So I didn't want to drink soda. So that left me, anytime I went to the restaurant, with water or tea, which sucks and it's boring. And so I thought it would be awesome if you had more and more, the reason so many people do drink is because there aren't choices, and restaurants don't have good choices to give out. So they're not going to, they're going to leave you with the basics. And so I think the whole ecosystem of sobriety has gotten better in that regard. But I do think the stories and the angels and demons on your shoulders do play out sometimes. And you always ask yourself, I'm sure you do, it's like, man, it would be awesome to have a cold beer right now, or it'd be awesome to do this or that, but you always just come back to your little islands of safety, and know
Right.
that you're in the right space.
Yeah, I think those conversations, certainly for me, they've gotten easier with age, and the more comfortable I am with, who I am and that piece of my identity of being sober, and, knowing the decision really isn't that hard, right? Because if I don't abide by what I know brings me success, it's gonna fail. And I think that becomes clearer and clearer the deeper I get into being, having successful relationships with my wife and my kids and my parents and my brother and my friends, right? Those things would all disappear. And so that's almost like the thing that I keep really close. It's almost like in The Godfather, the whole idea of you keep your enemies, you keep your friends close, but your enemies closer, right? You keep those things, those ideas in the forefront. Like, what would my life look like without these people? Well, start drinking and you'll find out.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So for me, it seems as I've aged, that just becomes a lot easier because I know that's going to suck. I don't want that.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? That's like kind of like a no-brainer. And I think too, the older you get, like I say, it's more accepting. Like, all of my friends know I don't drink, so they don't give me shit. I don't have to go through any of that stuff anymore. The people who I'm, deeply rooted with, they all understand and they're supportive and they're great. And I'm not the kind of guy who's like, I can't drink just because I'm a dipshit and I don't know how to do it responsibly. Doesn't mean you can, right? And so
Right.
I'm not that egotistical to be like, yo, don't drink around me. No, I still, so I think with age that becomes just easier too. As far as that, those demons, you know what I mean? Like, those conversations, I think, get a lot simpler for me.
Yeah.
For sure. So.
Well,
But I agree. I think that the NA beer scene is getting good. I think about, us on Guys Fishing Weekend too. And, I take a lot of heat because I'm, at midnight, 1:00, I'm like zonked, dude. I'm ready to be done. I'm always the
that's
first one
not a
that leaves the
sobriety
card
thing.
table.
That is not a sobriety thing.
There's a piece of it. There's a piece of it that, like, you get tired being around drunk people. Like, there's a part of that gets laborious, and it's an age thing, right? I mean, you being sober you can stay up later, and like, I don't have that energy anymore, so I got to figure something out about that. But yeah, I am the one that always ends poker night early. For sure. And I'll wear that. I don't give a shit. But I get tired. And then when people are just, get fucking drunker and drunker, it gets old. And I don't have the youthful energy of an Ed Beck. So yeah, I crash early. But that's become an issue, I think. It's become kind of a thing I'm becoming more self-conscious about.
Yeah.
So
it's a good thing to get a little more conscious about. Okay.
It's funny. Here I am preaching. I get all this support from my friends, but not in that realm.
We all draw lines.
Oh, you're leaving. Oh, you're quitting. Yeah. The peer pressure is like ridiculous. Yeah.
No one's gonna die from you going to bed 30 minutes later.
It's never 30 minutes later. It's always another 30 minutes after that, and then another 30 minutes after that. I have to draw boundaries. Yeah.
Oh man.
1:00. I'm out. I need my beauty rest.
No, but
hilarious.
I do think Guys Fishing Weekend is a place where, you've obviously created it that way. It's always been that way. You've always been this, as long as the trip's been around, you've been sober. So, it's always had that air to it. But I do think above and beyond that, I think just the fact that we've been, we're family at this point. So it's, you kind of have to accept one another. Otherwise you lose such a great tradition and everything. So I think,
I mean, for sure, I think there's like, if you're not going to accept everybody for who they are on this trip, you're not going. You know what I mean? If you're still going on this trip, it's because you're pretty accepting of it. And like you say, that idea of safe community, that's what we have. That's what makes it so incredibly good, right? That's what makes it, that's what makes it so that I've never missed one. The only guy who's never missed one, that's me,
it.
Right? Well, you've never missed one since you started going.
I might have missed one. But
oh, there it is.
Yeah,
right? So the only one with perfect attendance is me. So
I'm not gonna say. So you win.
Right. No, but that safe community feeling is what makes you want to be a part of that. And so that's an amazing thing to have
100%.
because not everybody has that, and it's
No.
incredible.
Well, it's always a place that, talk about this a lot too, but just it is your safe harbor to kind of come in and check where you are in life, and all of those things. And I think just it being a safe place is one of those huge aspects to it. So,
Right. Well, good, dude.
Huh?
That was a good piece, man.
One piece in the book. It was read poorly. I should have warmed up. I should have practiced.
Yeah, you'll get there.
I just need to remediate 8th grade English.
Yeah, we'll have a little session. I can teach it.
All right, man. Well, I love you. Thanks for taking the time today.
Great to see you too, buddy. I love you. Until next week, yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
Talk then. See you, man.
Bye.